Well, welcome back. This is a subject. This is really kind of a cool subject, actually, and people are going to maybe be shocked by this a little bit, but this is a video on the coming of the giants and judgment. Now, this is really, when I say the word giant, I'm applying it to two different things. First of all, I'm referring to gatekeepers in the government, in different places of, I guess you call it the five realms of government, church, society, that is today. Things of leadership and, private world and all that stuff. So, and that what I would describe as what we call gatekeepers today, or a lot of way people use the term towards gatekeepers is narcissist, So basically it's just cleaning out the predators, that hate humanity, people that hate humanity and that prey on humanity. And so that would be one, when you say the word giants, that would be one, in judgment, that would be one key area today that God is doing. This, you could look at this when it comes to Noah, and when you think of Noah in the Bible, that basically God cleaned the earth, he wiped the earth of these different creatures, and we're going to get into what does that actually mean. And the second thing is the coming of the giants. This is physically giants, the coming of the giants. I know this sounds a little crazy, but we're going to get into this biblical description. God has shown me a lot of pictures lately of stone outcroppings. I'm showing them here as a reference. And things that look like giants, and that like, well, this is just a bunch of rocks. And what God has shown me is that there will be a period, there will be a time, and I know this sounds unbelievable to a lot of people, but there will be a time where these creatures, God will make these things come alive. And people will see these rock, stone-like creatures at some point walking the earth for a short period of time. And I believe this is to show people, it's judgment, but it is as well to show people that they have not been relying upon Him. And I know it sounds crazy to some people, but I'm telling you right now that it will happen. And I've listened to someone's YouTube channel, and I didn't really think about this, but they said that they said it will happen during the 3 days of darkness, that these creatures will start roaming the earth. God will make these creatures come alive, and they'll start roaming the earth. And as I mentioned in a post that, first of all, God is in control. Every knee must bow, every entity must bow before God and Jesus Christ. So God has full control of these things. They cannot do anything outside the will of God. So I want to say that, so that we're not in fear, living in paranoia, all that stuff. But so now I'm going to talk about, first of all, the word. People use the word a lot. Anarchy is basically they use this and they start talking about things like the pyramids and and it's mentioned a lot of what are these things and all that stuff. But when you look at Anunnaki, it is a word that was used in the Old Testament, and they were descendants of Anak, like Anunnaki, and descendants of Anak. So basically they were giant people that lived in the hills around Hebron and Philistia. And the actual word meaning is that they had extraordinary stature and strength. And so these were creatures that lived in the Promised Land. You look at 1 Samuel 17, verse 4, Joshua 11:22, and in Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 28, basically when the spies were sent out, they had come into the Promised Land. Israel had come to the Promised Land. They'd just gone through Egypt. They had the miracles and the wonder signs and wonders happen with Moses. And then Moses sends out the spies. And who does he send out? He sends Joshua and he sends Caleb, amongst other leaders. But they come back in Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 19, and through chapter 9, verse 3, they start talking about how big these creatures were, how they look like grasshoppers in their eyes. And the sad thing is that they didn't enter the Promised Land at this time. They had to wait until all these people died off. These people that were completely faithless died off, and rebellious as well. And he said that when you look at it, it was Caleb and Joshua. What they said is, when you look at it in that verse in Deuteronomy 8:19 through 9:3, they said that our God is the consuming fire. So those two believed that when Joshua speaks this, is that, I think this is actually, I think it was Moses that spoke it, but anyways, he says, our God is a consuming fire. He will consume. So the meaning there was that God's going to take care of these giants, even though, yes, they are much bigger than you. But he gave them a promise. He's going to do it. And the people just didn't believe. Only Joshua and Caleb believed. So, and then it talks about Anakim, Rephaim, and there was words used in the Old Testament. And then we look at, so there's Goliath. There's the story of Goliath. He was, according to the Bible, he was 9 to 10 feet tall, and he had siblings. There was other people like him, which matches what the Bible says about the fact that they were driven out, and that only in Gath and places like that is where a few giants live, because they were basically, Joshua and Caleb killed them all off, which was, they fulfilled their destiny that they were supposed to do. And which I think that's a lesson to be learned, because Joshua, they saw the giants. Obviously they had fear because they were bigger than them physically, but because they believed the promise, they believed that God was going to fulfill that promise. They were going to deliver from those giants, the things that seemed impossible. And then the word Nephilim is used, which was found in Genesis chapter 6. So they said that there was the Nephilim were amongst them, and then had sex with women, and had basically children with the women. And so the word Nephilim, what it means is bully or tyrant. And then they would have hybrid offspring. And that these can be considered giants before the flood and after. So it says they were also extraordinary physical in stature and had a fearful reputation, if you look at the meaning of the word in Hebrew. So the example of this is in Genesis 6 chapter verse 4. Now, if you look at the word bully and tyrant, that can also be used today. The gatekeepers. These people would be the people that are bully and tyrants. Obviously taking advantage of people in the world today. I'm talking about whether it be church, or be government, and plenty of examples of this. And so what basically, when you think about the word, it always, these words Nephilim and Anakia, there was judgment attached to these things. And in Genesis chapter 6, we read the story of Noah. And if you think about Noah, I want to really get you thinking here, because Noah, if you think about it, Noah probably sat there. He built this boat over many, many years, and now apparently we found Noah's Ark, that this is really what they found in Turkey. This rock outcropping, and they dug up the Noah's Ark and started trying to finding the original compartments within Noah's Ark, which is crazy. And so Noah's Ark, you look, he was building this ark for so many years. I'm sure many times Noah sat there like, why the heck am I building this ark? Why is God telling me to do this? Like, it must have looked so foolish to other people to obey God in everything he's saying. And it must have made those people around him, like, it must have, first of all, looked foolish to him. And then he was preaching against the people doing wickedness, where he wasn't falling into everything the world and the culture was saying to do. Homosexuality, the rampant sexual immorality, stealing. It's every inclination of their hearts was evil. So they were stealing from people. They were cheating people. They were doing all these things that the Bible speaks against. And so, think about the faith it took. First of all, to build that boat, to be mocked by these people, and then for him to go and preach to those people day after day after day after day, to speak to those people that were mocking him, and to try to encourage them to get on the boat, after he was trying to encouraging them to do. So I want to say that, that there was judgment. Then came the water. It started raising slowly. That's the way judgment usually happens, is that the rains came at first, and everyone's, it's just rain. Okay, well, it's just this. And then the judgment, the rain started getting deeper, and everything started flooding to a point where people had nothing, they were not prepared for. So that's the judgment that God every so often brings about a time of complete judgment, and He uses His people that listen to His voice and obey to save those people. And I want to say that, looking at these creatures, these rock creatures, I'm pretty sure He's telling me that these things will come alive. People will see these creatures. People are going to see things that they're just not going to believe. Like, it talks about in the Bible, and I think it was in Joel chapter 2, where it's like people's hearts are going to fail. I'd spoken before about the earthquakes. I've spoken about, like, the one in San Francisco that's going to happen. I'd spoken about the 3 days of darkness. I've spoken about, now I put on my YouTube channel about a very big comet or very large meteorite that's going to explode, and people are going to see it, and people are going to lose their lives from this kind of stuff. And so when these things happen, people are going to be in fear, extreme fear, and they're going to realize that they haven't cultivated a true relationship with Him. And I pray for those people that really want to change. There's some people that aren't going to change. It's just the way it is. A lot of people in the time of Noah refused to change until it was too late. So my hope, and what I encourage people to do is to make those changes. Go ahead and make them. God, the Bible says God gives people a way out. He will give you a way out. You don't have to be trapped in the sin, but you got to pray for that way out. You got to pray that you can overcome these things in your life so you can hear God clearly, and that these things won't terrify you, because God is in control in the end for the people that love Him, people that are obedient to His word. So I want to encourage you with all these things to be obedient to when these things hit. They don't have to be in fear, but you can trust that God is going to protect you if you've lived for Him, and that you can survive. That you'll have favor once you come out of it on the other end. So thanks for listening. And I know it sounds crazy, but I'm just telling you, that's what God showed me. So we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.